In 2018, I raved about the Proov at-home progesterone tests. And since then, their team has not been sitting still and they've continued to develop their product. To make it more convenient for your use, they've introduced an app and it's finally available in Europe as well. So in this video, I'm going to show you their upgrades. I'll explain to you how the test works, how you can use it, and how you especially can use it in your fertility journey. Hello my lovelies, welcome to another one of my videos in which we'll be talking about the progesterone at-home tests from Proov. And as I said, the great news is that they are not only available to you in the US, but now finally those of you in Europe can get their hands on these tests as well. So thank you so much Proov for making this possible. Progesterone is an important hormone when we're trying to fall pregnant. It's generally an important hormone for us to be happy, healthy, and in balance. But especially when we're trying to conceive, we want to make sure we have plenty of this so that we can fall pregnant and hold on to pregnancy. Now, if you want to learn more about how progesterone is important for you and your pregnancy and your fertility journey, head on over to my previous Proov review because I explain everything about progesterone in there. And since this is such an important hormone, you may want to know if you're good to go and if you have the prerequisites of falling and staying pregnant. And this is where this fantastic test comes in. Because if you want to test your progesterone, you'll have to go into the doctor's office to get your blood drawn, and that can be a bit of a faff. Not only that, you are also more prone to having tested on the wrong day, say standard on cycle day 21. I have a video on that as well. If you're interested, I have it linked in the cards. So if you want to know if you're good to go, an at-home test is obviously ideal. Now, if you want to know if you have signs and symptoms of low progesterone in your charts, then my chart imputation course might be right for you. I have that linked in the description down below because I have an entire module that is dedicated to low progesterone signs and symptoms and luteal phase defect. So how to use the Predict and Confirm kit from Proov? Well, when you're trying to conceive, you have your fair share of peeing on sticks, right? Your LH test strips, your pregnancy test. This is no different. With the Predict and Confirm kit, you will get both the LH test strips and the PDG tests, and I will go into what is PDG later on. So if you already have a bunch of LH test strips, you can also just get the PDG test from them. But if not, you have the full kit, which is pretty convenient. You have everything that you need to predict and confirm ovulation. So step one is that you use the PDG test at the beginning of your cycle after you have had your period, just to make sure that you have a good view of what your baseline is when it comes to a negative PDG test. And then a couple of days later, as ovulation approaches, you start to test for LH. Now, if you want to learn how you can use LH test to predict ovulation coming up, then I definitely recommend that you look into my free basics to fertility charting course because I explain everything in there. Whether you use the PDG confirmation test or not, you just want to learn how to chart. LH tests are part of that story, and I will make sure to link that down below. Now, if you will be using the kit, there are plenty of instructions in there on how you can use the LH test. The only thing that's really important for me to mention is that you use an LH test later on in the morning or in the afternoon, not first morning urine as you do with a pregnancy test. Then step 3 is that you start using the PDG test. And if you're doing the full charting, which I teach in that free basics to fertility charting course, and which I do recommend, then you start testing at 6 days past ovulation. Now, if you're only using the kit, then Proov says start at 7 days past your peak fertility, which you have been testing with your LH test. Now, here's something that is really important. You don't just test that one day, which, by the way, you do with first morning urine, so different from the LH test, but that you keep testing for another 3 days. And the reason for that is that if you don't do that, you miss out on important information. Maybe your progesterone peaks a little bit later. Maybe your progesterone starts to drop really quickly. This is all very important information for you to have. So if you are fully charting and you know when you ovulate, you start at 6 DPO, you do 7 DPO, 8 DPO, 9 DPO, and if you're just using this test kit, you start at 7 days past your positive LH test strip, and then you repeat at 8, 9, and 10 days. If you've already been using LH test strips or pregnancy tests, then you know that the test is positive if you have a control line, and then for a pregnancy test, either at least a faint test line, and with a LH test strip, that the test line should be at least as dark as the control line. With the PDG test, it's different. If you have a second line, even if it's super faint, that means it's negative. And only if you just see the control line and the rest is white, that means it's positive. And when it's positive, that means that you are meeting the threshold of 5 micrograms per milliliter of PDG, which correlates with 10 nanograms per milliliter of progesterone in your blood. And this is what I said that I would explain later, right? Like, why are we testing PDG and not progesterone directly? But first, let's complete this little tutorial bit. You record the test results of your LH test strips and your PDG test strips either on a piece of paper or, which is a lot cooler and more fun and more convenient, in their app. You can take a picture and then the app actually interprets the results and plots it on a gorgeous little chart for you. So here is why we're talking about PDG and not progesterone tests. Progesterone levels you can only test in your blood, so you need to have blood drawn. PDG is a metabolite of progesterone. So that means if you have progesterone in your blood, it metabolizes in your liver and shows up as PDG in your urine. And that you can test really easily and conveniently at home by just peeing on a stick. And as I said, if you meet the threshold of these Proov tests of 5 micrograms per milliliter, that correlates with a blood progesterone level of 10 nanograms per milliliter, which is the minimum you will want to see on peak progesterone level in the second half of your cycle to be able to hold on to a pregnancy. If you're contemplating purchasing this kit to help you in your fertility journey, you may want to know why it may be useful to you. So first of all, it may be useful if you aren't charting or you don't want to chart at all. Because again, with the Predict and Confirm kit, you will have the LH test strips, which tell you that ovulation is about to happen. And then with the PDG test, you can confirm if ovulation has happened. This may be really useful if you've only just started to try to conceive and you want to know a little bit more than is ovulation coming. You want to know if you actually did ovulate, or if maybe you have been charting but you are so fed up and you want to take a break but you still kind of want to know what's going on, then this may be really useful. It may also be useful if you want to cross-check with your chart. In your chart you may have seen, oh, this is probably when I ovulated and my temperature did go up but I'm not 100% sure. Then you can confirm it with these tests. And then lastly, this is not what Proov says. Proov says that you shouldn't be using this as a diagnostic tool, just as a snapshot of where you are in your cycle. But as your fertility homeopath, I do tell you that this can be useful information as part of your fertility journey if you have been struggling with conceiving. If you have been struggling with conceiving, or you may have indeed seen signs and symptoms in your chart of having low progesterone, then this can help you take that first step at home to see if something is going on before you go to your doctors or have blood drawn. So if you think you are having issues with low progesterone, you can then take this test, and then if it is negative for a cycle or for several cycles, then that is a clear sign to you that you need to get your blood work done to see what's happening. As with every fertility tool, there are some limitations. And with these tests, it is that it may not be useful if you have PCOS or signs of PCOS, or you have several batches of positive LH tests or of cervical mucus, or you have very long cycles, then this may not be an ideal tool for you. And secondly, it doesn't give you the exact numbers of progesterone in your blood, of course. It just tells you if you cross that threshold of 10 nanograms per milliliter. Now, of course, you want to know what to do with the test results, right? If you've done those 4 days of the PDG testing and it is positive, then yay for you. You know you've crossed that threshold and you're probably good to go. Just make sure that you check if your luteal phase is indeed long enough. So we're looking at 14 days ideally. If the test is negative, then that may give you a bit of a scare initially, but don't get freaked out right away. Every cycle is different, and sometimes we don't ovulate. Sometimes our progesterone levels are a bit lower because of stress. So don't draw conclusions after just one cycle. Do the test at least for another cycle and then think about next steps. You may decide to start charting along right away that following cycle so that you also have information of where your temperatures are at, if they're fluctuating, if they are dropping very quickly, etc., etc. And then if your test results continue to be negative, or you notice in your charting that your luteal phase is short, or your temperatures don't go up, or they drop really quickly, then you want to make sure that you get your blood drawn. And make sure you don't get your blood drawn on the standard cycle day 21, because then you may not have the right information again. You're going to want to chart and know when you likely ovulated so you can calculate 7 days past ovulation and then get your blood drawn. I'll make sure to link in a video in the cards up here on boosting progesterone in case your progesterone isn't great, so that you know that there's something you can do about it naturally. You can purchase the Predict and Confirm test kit for $40. It contains 15 LH test strips and 5 PDGs. You can order the PDG test alone for just one cycle if you already have a bunch of LH test strips for $30, 2 cycles for $50, or 4 cycles for $90. And if you want to have $5 off your purchase, I've got an affiliate link for you right down below. Hey, and if you want to learn more about charting, then make sure to click on the playlist on your screen right now. And in the meantime, see you in the next video. Bye!